mpaka Ijumaa, moja kwa moja kutoka VOA Swahili, Washington.
Hello, I'm Esther Githu-Ewart. It's Monday, January 9th. This is Africa 54.
Senegal President Macky Sall went to the site near Kaffrine where two buses collided over the weekend, killing at least 39, as VOA's Paul Navijo details. 46 Ivorian soldiers held in Mali have finally come home, as David Doyle reports. With Kevin McCarthy finally installed as Speaker of the House, that side of the U.S. Congress is now expected to challenge and check the Biden administration. All this and much more on today's Africa 54.
We begin with sad news from West Africa, where Senegalese President Macky Sall visited the site of the accident between two buses that killed more than 36 people outside the village of Sikilo in central Senegal. Africa 54's Paul Ndiho has the details.
39 people were killed and more than 100 others injured when two buses collided overnight on an arterial road in Senegal's central Kaffrine region. Speaking to reporters, President Macky Sall corrected an earlier government statement that had put the death toll at 40, citing a miscount at the morgue.
Le Sénégal a été frappé par une tragédie.
Tragedy hit Senegal
Suite à cet accident,
following this traffic
la
accident,
circulation qui a occasionné
which caused the death of 39 people.
39 personnes.
President Sall made the comments after visiting the crash site and speaking with some of the injured at a regional hospital.
La difficulté restera
The
l'identification.
difficulty in identifying other bodies remains. It will be done as we go along.
Apportera tout le soutien et toute la
The state will
solidarité
provide all the support and solidarity to the bereaved families and the injured or their families to reduce their suffering.
atténuer leur souffrance.
Images of the incident showed a white bus with a mangled front end, blood-splattered seats, and personal items strewn around the tree-lined accident site. Many experts say accidents are common in Senegal, primarily because of driver error, poor vehicles, and roads. However, the latest disaster has caused one of the heaviest losses of life from a single incident in recent years. Senegal began 3 days of national mourning Monday, and flags are being flown at half-staff across the country. Opposition politician Ousmane Sonko announced on Twitter that he would postpone a scheduled fundraising program in light of the accident, saying, quote, "We bow before the memory of the deceased, offer our heartfelt condolences to their grieving loved ones and to all Senegalese, and pray for the merciful rest of their souls and a speedy recovery for the injured." In October 2020, at least 16 people were killed when a bus collided with a refrigerated truck in western Senegal. Paul Ndiho, VOA News, Washington.
46 Ivorian soldiers detained in Mali for 6 months arrived home late on Saturday after being freed from detention where they had gone on a peacekeeping mission. David Doyle explains.
Dancing and shouts of joy greeted dozens of Ivorian soldiers on the tarmac of Abidjan's airport late on Saturday. That's after 6 months of being held captive in Mali. The release of the 46 detainees signals an apparent resolution of a diplomatic standoff between the West African neighbours. And for Koulibaly Femme Riche, mother of one of the soldiers, it was a moment of relief.
We cried, we fasted, we prayed, and finally God answered us. I am so joyful. Words fail me. I am looking for words.
The troops, which Ivory Coast said were part of a United Nations peacekeeping mission, were arrested at the airport in Mali's capital Bamako in July. At the time, Malian authorities said the soldiers were acting as mercenaries. On December 30th, they were sentenced to 20 years in prison for allegedly attempting to undermine state security. But late on Friday, Mali's junta, citing a commitment to peace and dialogue, issued pardons. Mali has grown increasingly isolated from the West African community of nations since a coup in 2020. Military officers who toppled the government have since failed on election promises, prompting sanctions from the region's political and economic bloc, ECOWAS. At a ceremony to welcome the soldiers home, Ivory Coast's President Alassane Ouattara said his country would continue to support all brother countries, and that he hopes Mali will find peace once more.
That was David Doe of Reuters reporting. Seretse Ian Khama, the exiled former president of Botswana, says he will challenge a court-issued warrant seeking his arrest. The former president says the arrest warrant is unconstitutional and politically motivated to prevent him from playing a role in next year's general election. VOA's Peter Clotty interviewed the former president via Zoom for reaction to the charges and the warrant seeking his arrest.
Well, we are challenging it because it has got a lot of flaws in it. The whole purpose and the reason for the warrant, because everything they've been doing all this time has always been unlawful. And that has come out in a number of court cases that I have won against them, that actions they've taken against me and my family have been illegal, have been unlawful. But they just continue. They even go against court orders. And right now, one of the issues I'm taking to court is contempt, because the highest court in our land ruled against them and they have ignored it. So again, we're going to be back in court challenging this warrant of arrest.
Well, some supporters of the ruling party say that you absconded from justice and that there should be equality before the law, irrespective of being a former president or your societal status, and that the judiciary of Botswana has a history of independence. So you absconded from justice, so they are asking the government or the authority to seek an extradition. So you come and face justice just like any Botswana who has violated the law. How do you react to that?
Well, first of all, I did not abscond from justice. At the time I left, there were no charges against me, not a single one. There was no warrant of arrest against me. I crossed the border at the time to come and meet former President Obasanjo of Nigeria, who asked to see me in South Africa. And I came across to come and meet him. After I crossed, there was a flurry of activity on the other side of the border in Botswana by the intelligence service, which Masisi has weaponized against his political opponents, including myself. A flurry of activity, which was proof that indeed they had intended to try and arrest me for the purpose of elimination, and they had not expected that I was going to cross. So ever since then, they've been trying their best to get at me. You would know, for example, if you take a country like Iran, when there has been somebody who has left the country under duress, and they'll always tell you they fear for their family. This happens in dictatorships. That's what exactly happened to me. After I left, they targeted my family. They detained them, they arrested them without any charges being preferred, denying them access to their lawyers. And they've done this with many other people. So this is the situation that we see going on in Botswana. And I agree 100% with you that as any other Botswana, if there are genuine and credible charges against me, I should go and have my day in court. But not if they are going to be fabricated, and certainly not if it's going to end up me losing my life at their hands because they want to remove me from the election campaign for our elections, which are coming up next year. Because I'm seen as the biggest threat to his re-election, and that is a fact. I am.
That was Serese Khama, Ian Khama, the exiled former president of Botswana, speaking to VOA's Peter Clotty. The U.S. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy has finally been sworn in, and Republican legislators can begin working on their agenda. Veronica Balderas Iglesias takes a look at what they seek to accomplish and their planned checks and balances on President Joe Biden's administration.
It took 4 days of bitter disagreements, but the people's gavel is now in the hands of House Speaker Kevin McCarthy. He's promised to his fellow Republicans and the American people to keep the Biden administration in check.
We will hold the swamp accountable. From the withdrawal of Afghanistan to the origins of COVID and to the weaponization of the FBI.
McCarthy's new position in power came with a set of concessions to his detractors that will now shape his leadership. A single member of the lower chamber in Congress could call for an internal election to oust him. During an interview with ABC this week, Republican Representative Andy Barr downplayed the measure's potential impact.
We're just going back to the pre-Pelosi rule that was in place since 1910. I don't think that's an issue at all in terms of creating chaos.
Even if unity prevails, the new House Speaker will have to find ways to negotiate with the Biden administration on thorny matters such as immigration and spending cuts, which U.S. Representative Scott Perry told ABC are necessary.
It's about making sure that we have a budget that we can agree upon that doesn't just continually increase spending, but then we appropriate to that budget.
President Joe Biden released a statement congratulating McCarthy and saying he is, quote, prepared to work with Republicans when he can. House Republicans on their side are keen to investigate the president's administration and his family's business dealings. Democratic Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries told NBC's Meet the Press he's hopeful he'll be able to find common ground with the new speaker for the sake of the American people.
I look forward to building upon the Biden agenda, tremendous accomplishments, and if Kevin McCarthy is willing to try to find common ground in that regard, they will find willing partners amongst House Democrats.
On the streets of Washington, Americans shared with VOA their opinions on the new congressional landscape.
As a Democrat, I'm not as excited about the new leadership, but I am hopeful that they can find a way to work through some of the problems that is facing our country. And in particular, I really hope that they don't use any brinksmanship, particularly around the debt ceiling.
I don't see an awful lot of change in foreign policy, although I think that the Republicans are going to use the power of the purse to try to, rein in the illegal immigration that's occurring right now.
These are sensitive topics that could translate into tough negotiations, since Republicans now hold a slim 222 to 212 margin over Democrats in the new session of the 118th Congress, with one current vacancy. Veronica Balderas Iglesias, VOA News, Washington.
For more on how Republican Kevin McCarthy was elected Saturday as U.S. House Speaker after 4 days and 14 failed ballots, I'm joined live from Capitol Hill by VOA's Ignatius Anor. Ignatius, welcome to Africa 54.
Esther, thank you so much for having me.
Now, this is historic. We haven't seen that in years. But what does this mean now for the Republican Party? What were the issues really that actually divided them for this long?
Well, it was mainly one key one. Just, a Republican representative can call for a snap election or a vote of no confidence in the Speaker, essentially to oust his leadership. At the end of the day, Speaker Kevin McCarthy gave in, and that's why on Saturday morning, he finally became the Speaker of the House. At this time, as I speak to you in the next couple of hours, the House will be reconvening again, and one of the key things they'll be dealing with is to pass the rules package. It's essentially how the 118th Congress will govern.
So that's their next agenda, you would say, because now they've put their house in order. This is what they're looking to do in the next couple of days, as you say?
Yes, that's one of the key things they'll be doing, including what Kevin McCarthy spoke about, which is border security. And he says that, in fact, one of their first briefings will be held at the southern border, and government cuts in government spending. He also mentioned that what they want to do is to ensure that tens of billions of dollars that have been earmarked for the international or the Internal Revenue Service will be repealed. And essentially, that bill was passed by the 117th Congress in the last session under the Inflation Reduction Act that would see 87,000 agents being employed by the IRS over the next few years to come after what the Republicans are seeing as middle-income earners in this country, something the Treasury Department has refuted. So as of now, the two things that the Republican-controlled House is keen on doing: pass the rule house and ensure the IRS doesn't get the tens of billions that were promised by that package last year.
Ignatius, so what does this mean now for the remaining 2 years of the Biden administration?
It's going to be a very interesting one to look at because we have a House which is divided, and we saw that last week when Republicans were really bent on not having Kevin have his way. Biden has also repeatedly said that he wants to reach across the aisle and ensure that some of the bills that are needed for the people of this country get passed. Would that happen? We would have to wait and see, because the Republicans have talked about the fact that the government is overspending. They want to ensure that there's cutting that would affect defense bills and other bills that are essential to running, the country. And Biden has 2 more years to go. But would he be able to have, for instance, the bipartisanship bills that were passed for his first 2 years when his party had both majority in the House? It remains to be seen, Esther.
Ignatius, thank you very much for your excellent reporting. VOA's Ignatius Anoa reporting live for us from the Capitol Hill. Media rights groups have called for South Sudanese authorities to release 6 journalists detained over a video reportedly showing President Salva Kiir urinating on himself. The staff of the state-run South Sudan Broadcasting Corporation were arrested on Tuesday by agents from the National Security Service, according to the Committee to Protect Journalists, citing media reports and other sources familiar with the case. They are under investigation over footage that went viral on social media in December, according to the report. The New York-based CPJ said in a statement issued late Friday. Still to come, World Athletics President lauds Kenya for addressing doping problems. But first, Haiti Adams tells us what's coming up on Wednesday's Straight Talk Africa.
On the next Straight Talk Africa, we'll take a look at Ethiopia's future and the prospect for lasting peace. Also, my conversation with the Executive Director of the International Trade Center, Pamela Coke-Hamilton, about how the African Continental Free Trade Area can unlock global and local opportunities for women-owned businesses. Join me, Haiti Adams, on the next Straight Talk Africa.
In other news, 5 suspects appeared in a Kenyan court on Monday in connection with the death of a prominent LGBTQ campaigner. Police are continuing to investigate the gruesome killing of Edwin Chiloba, 25, who was found last week stuffed in a metal box on a roadside in Western Kenya. No motive for the killing has been established. Nigeria's Edo State Governor's office says gunmen armed with AK-47 rifles abducted more than 30 people from Tomi Ikemi train station in southern Edo State. The passengers were waiting on a train to Wari, on an oil hub in nearby Delta State. And in Ivory Coast, 44,000 tons of beans were delivered to Abidjan port and 43,000 tons to San Pedro between January 2nd and January 8th for a total of 87,000 tons. Cocoa is a significant cash crop for Ivory Coast, so the size and viability of its crop is important to the government and its budget. Kenya appealed on Monday to the Confederation of African Football to be included in the 2023 Africa Cup of Nations. Kenya was excluded from the tournament after FIFA suspended the Kenya Football Federation in February 2022, accusing the government of interfering in the sport when it disbanded the national governing body. However, FIFA agreed to lift the suspension in November last year, following the Kenya government's decision to reinstate the country's football federation. World Athletics President Sebastian Coe lauds Kenya's commitment to addressing doping after several positive tests banned substances. Emma Jelle has more.
World Athletics chief Sebastian Coe had high praise for Kenya's anti-doping efforts as the government reiterated its pledge to spend $5 million a year on the issue for the next 5 years.
We know from sad experience and the work of our task force that has produced some of the changes that we wanted to see in Russia, that the early years were about cover-up. They were about obfuscation, and they were about avoiding the challenge. In Kenya, this is different.
Kenya, known for its middle and long-distance runners, avoided a ban in November, despite an increasing number of its athletes being suspended for positive tests. It has faced accusations of widespread use of performance-enhancing drugs for years. The country's sports minister, Ababu Namwamba.
Government has already committed $5 million a year for the next 5 years. That is $25 million US. And that money will support that all-out war against doping. We want to do more education, more sensitization. We want to do more testing, so you're going to see a much broader testing led by our anti-doping agency of Kenya.
The fact that all these agencies are in alignment and prepared to work alongside World Athletics and the Athletic Integrity Unit is a very, very important statement. The journey will be a long journey. We should not kid ourselves that this is going to be achieved overnight.
Emma Jelle of Reuters filed at that report. The ceremonial and electrifying sound of drums filled the small Paraguayan city of Fernando de la Mora with joy and transformed it into a small corner of Africa late Saturday and into the early hours of Sunday. Wearing brightly colored clothes, some of the local residents who can trace their roots in this area back to 1820 paid tribute to their patron Saint Balthazar as they showcased their African heritage. Each year, members of the community of Kambakua in Fernando de la Mora, a city of about 160,000 residents, hold a festival in honor of Saint Balthazar, where they celebrate with dances, customs, and ancestral traditions. Kambakua is a historic district that was ceded to José Galvasio Artigas when he was exiled from Uruguay and received refuge in Paraguay by José Gaspar Rodriguez de Francia.
My ancestors have fought. My ancestors have built this great nation and are not part of history.
The Kamba ethnic Africans arrived at the area with the Artigas army. Nature photographers from around the world expressed their sentiments about an ever-changing planet in a contest sponsored by the Nature Conservancy, an environmental non-profit. VOA's Julie Tabo has more on the winning images.
Dewdrops shimmer like diamonds on this purple heart flower. A fan-throated lizard catches some sun on a wind farm in India. And a drone shot of a secluded highway in Tibet reveals a tree shape formed by erosion. These are just a few images by photographers who captured unique aspects of nature in hopes of raising awareness of the beauty and fragility of our ever-changing planet. The photos are among the winners of a contest by the Nature Conservancy, an environmental nonprofit. The competition drew 100,000 entries from 196 countries and territories.
This contest brings the world's photographers to our fingertips and our computer screens. We get to see every corner of the globe through another person's perspective.
Florian Ledoux captured this image of a polar bear nursing her cubs in an abandoned Russian coal mining settlement in Norway.
For me, this image is a statement that in the future, our society might collapse. And
animals, wildlife, nature will still be there.
It always takes a little while before the animals get used to you.
Coyote Peterson, a competition judge and the host of the Brave Wilderness Adventure series on YouTube, chose Ledoux's image.
I just felt that everything about that image was incredibly powerful. An animal's going to do whatever it needs to do to fight to survive. And when it comes to a mother taking care of her young, it didn't matter what the backdrop was. She was there for her baby, and that really spoke to me.
Capturing the image of this leopard carrying the corpse of a female vervet monkey with its baby still hanging on was a heart-wrenching experience for photographer Shafiq Mullah of Zambia.
When I first posted this picture on Instagram, I had a lot of negative comments coming in. Like, why did you save the monkey and how can you be so cruel? It was very emotional and also heartbreaking also. But us wildlife photographers, we can't interfere in nature.
For photographer Kaylee Che, who lives in Australia, finding and photographing bioluminescent mushrooms is a magical experience. Her shot of what she's nicknamed ghost mushrooms, due to their eerie green glow, won first prize in the plants and fungi category.
So those mushrooms look quite ordinary in daylight, but it comes at nighttime, they are like a totally different species altogether. It glows, and you feel like you're in a fairyland somehow when you're photographing them. You know, it's just amazing. Like, it's almost a spiritual experience.
While each photo is unique, they all serve as reminders of nature's beauty, fragility, and resilience, and a reminder of the importance of protecting and preserving natural wonders. Julie Tabo, VOA News, Washington.
And that wraps up our show this Monday. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, thank you for watching.
So there's a mass of activity about which we don't know anything.